Hey there, lovely people. Welcome to Be Your Best You with Tash and Becky, your go-to hangout for all things spiritual, subconscious, and downright magical. We're here to sprinkle a little mystical wisdom into your everyday life and help you level up your reality.
Picture this as your cosmic coffee date, where we chat about the unseen world, blend in some psychology vibes and stir up the subconscious magic. Get ready to be the queen of your own reality, live a life that lights you up and have a blast doing it.
So grab your latte or your tea and let's dive into another episode of Be Your Best You, where the mystical meets the mundane and your best life awaits.
Cheers to creating magic together.
Let's do this. Hello! Welcome back to another episode of Be Your Best You with Tash
And Becky.
Thank you for joining us today. So today we are doing a much requested episode. We are in fact talking about past lives, past life regression, specifically the past life regression that I am trained in, which is QHHT, which stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. It was created by a lady called Dolores Cannon, who, if you're in the kind of spiritual, metaphysical world, you'll definitely have heard of Dolores. She's actually no longer with us, but she was the one that created this hypnosis technique and honed it over decades and decades. Done, thousands and thousands of regressions, written so many books, many of which I have read. Some of them are like this thick and quite mind-bending, but she oh gosh, I mean, I don't know how old she was I think she was in her 80s when she died. But some of the stuff that she was coming out with, especially back in the times that she was talking about it, she was well ahead of her time. And I just love hearing. I remember the first time I saw her talking on a YouTube video, and I was like, how are these words coming out of this old lady's mouth? And she just looked like, she had a old lady hairstyle and her glasses and the blanket, and she just blew my mind the way she would just talk so blasé about this stuff. But she'd heard it over and over and over again in her regressions. And everybody, she would do regressions all over the world, and she'd speak to someone in America and then come over to England, and they would give her the next part of this kind of big piece of the puzzle. So basically, spirit, the higher beings, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, were communicating through her hypnosis subjects. And although they were helping the actual people in their own kind of lives, they were also giving information for the bigger picture, and they were feeding it to her in dribs and drabs, but everybody was carrying on the story, even though they were all over the world. It was incredible. And she was just very, very good at piecing together all the information to make this big picture that she obviously put in her books, but also was being corroborated with other things that would happen, archaeological finds that would then come up, and that was going against the mainstream beliefs, but it would be proving what she had already kind of taken out and said, because people were saying it in their regressions. So I went on a bit of a tangent about Dolores, but she's very cool, and I have learned a lot. I've got a lot of my knowledge from one, reading her books and opening my mind to what she was kind of dishing out, but also then by doing the regressions in her method myself, I am then getting access to this information, and I am speaking to this same energy, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that she was speaking to, and it's saying the same things to me. And these people are coming in, these normal people are coming in who don't have this kind of knowledge and awareness in their conscious state. They're saying it in this hypnotic state. You're one of them.
Yes.
And it's all matching up. And there's only so many times that you can hear the same thing over and over again, no matter how bonkers it sounds, without thinking there's got to be some kind of truth to this, for goodness sake, because if I hear it one more time,
Exactly.
So I'm really, really grateful to QHHT and Dolores Cannon for opening my mind to what could potentially be out there, and then being able to find other avenues, because that's what I'm like. I'm just like this thirst for knowledge that I have. I want to get my knowledge from everywhere, and I get it from everywhere, and it always comes back. You know, more often than not, I'll go, Dolores said that about 30 years ago, and I remember reading that in her book, and oh yeah, that makes sense because that was said in her book. So anyway, so I have actually, interestingly enough, I actually came across QHHT before I trained as a regular hypnotherapist. And my choice, I was back and forth whether do I want to train as a hypnotherapist in the regular hypnotherapy or do I want to do this past life regression? And ultimately, obviously, I decided to do the regular hypnotherapy first. Because I knew at some point when the time was right, and I trusted that I would then go on and do training QHHT, already having that solid foundation as a hypnotherapist. Which is what I did, and I'm glad I did it. It was a good choice for me. It was the right path for me. Not necessarily for everybody, but for me, that's the way I did it, and it made sense, and I'm glad. So, as we said, this is a much requested episode, and it's been requested for a long time. Everybody is interested in past lives. I was literally having a conversation with a client this morning about past lives, because she found out that I did past life regression, and she was like, oh my god, and everybody gets so animated, whether they believe it or not. So I mean, I don't know, I wonder how many of you guys listening believe in past lives, don't believe in past lives, are on the fence about past lives. I'd be interested. Pop in the group and let us know. I'd love to do, maybe we'll do a poll. We'll do a poll to see what your kind of views are of it. And honestly, like, we can never know, as I feel like I've said this quite a lot, we can never know whether it's true or not. We can only go with what we experience, what we believe resonates with us, and trust that, because and if it helps, that's great. Now, in my opinion, past life regression is a very, very powerful form of healing. It's you know, like we said, a lot of people are interested in it, and some people will just, I want to have a past life regression because it's interesting. And who was I in my past life? And that's fine, because honestly, before I trained in QHHT and you know, looked into regression and hypnotherapy in general, your subconscious mind, I was just interested in past lives, and I didn't realize the actual healing and just dramatic transformational effects it can have on your current life now.
You wouldn't think that they were all connected, and yet all your lives are connected, aren't they?
From my opinion, from my experience doing it, you know, 100%. And I specifically like QHHT because it's not just a regular past life regression. So the reason it's called quantum healing hypnosis technique is because it's kind of two parts to it. Well, I suppose there's three, actually. Obviously, Becky has had about 3 QHHT sessions, haven't you? Although one was only had the past life aspect, because her higher self said that she doesn't need to do past lives anymore. It's all cleared. It's about moving forward. So we never did them after that, did we? But so essentially there's 3 parts to QHHT. You have the first part. It was a long session. Just FYI, it's about, anything between 4.5 to 6 hours long. So
it's intense.
It's intense to say the least. But having said that, for the person that's having the actual therapy, it doesn't feel that long, because you're in hypnosis for a lot of it, and time goes like that. For me, it's a long session. But it actually goes quite quickly for me as well, because I love it so much. I love it so much. And yes, I'm quite like drained. My energy is drained afterwards, although I am actually on a high as well, because the energy that comes through when we bring in the higher self, which I'll tell you about in a second, is just so high and such, like, I can't even explain it. I come out like I'm like, I'm wired, I'm buzzing, but at the same time,
but then
I am exhausted.
You are gonna, after that high comes a low.
And also that high energy gives me a really headache. That's how I feel it. But like, I'm just grateful for it, because I love being in that energy. So anyway, it's a long session, it's intense, but it's worth it, and you can literally walk out of this room changed. again, everybody's experiences with it are different. I've never had anyone that's walked out and gone, well, that hasn't done anything for me.
No.
But there's, as with anything, there's a scale.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of them are just like, I walked out of that room and you've changed my life.
Yeah.
To, oh my gosh, I've had so many realizations.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful in my journey.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever. For you, it was quite, that first session was quite transformational in terms of your fear, wasn't it?
It
we'll
was.
talk about that later for sure, because that was massive for you. It was the key to everything, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, if you, well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But you'll see once I solve that one issue, how good things can come of it.
Yes, exactly that. So the first part of it, the session, is where we just chat. Yeah. And so that takes anything up to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I literally just say, tell me your life story.
Yeah.
Sit down.
Yeah.
Speak.
And that in itself is amazing with you.
Yeah.
Because you get so much out of that, like even without doing the you know, the actual QHHT session.
Yeah.
That is enough to really have some answers just from talking to you. So that alone is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, really, how often do you get to go somewhere and have someone say, just talk about you?
Yes, exactly.
For as long as you like, I don't want you to hold anything back. Just talk about you. Like, you just don't get that, do you? And a lot of people, when they, you know, they sit there and they go, I don't know what to say. Like,
2 hours.
How do I start? Like, I'm like, don't worry. I promise you, once you get talking, it's going to go. And, you know, some people will spend a lot of time on their childhood.
Yeah.
And other people will breeze through their childhood and spend a lot of time on their kind of like teenage years. And then other people will spend a long time on their the current kind of aspects.
Yeah.
But however it goes is perfect for the person that sat in the chair. It's always different. I never know what's coming in. I never know where the session's going to go.
No.
But I always trust that whatever comes out in that talk, in that 2-hour chat, is going to be pave the way for the session that you have and for the lives that you visit. Because whatever comes out in the chat is your subconscious is choosing what to chuck up at you and what to come out. Because I can't tell, if I had £1 for the amount of times people will go, oh my God, I've never thought that before. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've told you that. I've never told anyone that. Or, oh my gosh, I've never connected that before. Because you just don't have the space to be able to do that. And also, we were having this conversation in there about something completely different, weren't we, earlier on? But when you speak out loud, when you speak something out loud, you can have realizations that you've never had. So the thing is when you're just on your own and you're having these thoughts going over and over in your head, it's the same kind of repeating thought, isn't it? It's jumbled, and it's just, you're not really finishing off the thought because it's just like going so
go to the next thing and the next thing. Yeah.
When you actually use your words to voice what's going on up here, that's when all of a sudden you can go, oh my God, I just had a realization. I had it earlier on today, didn't I? That's what we were talking about. And that's why coming to have some kind of therapy, no matter what that looks like, that's why therapy is good, because you are voicing what's in your head and you will have realization. So anyway, you have this 2-hour chat. Like you said, Bex, that can be enlightening and cathartic and healing in itself. There's tears, there's, you know, compassion. Obviously, I'm here, I'm understanding where you're coming from, validate you, although I don't say an awful lot in this time. This is about you speaking and telling me your life story kind of thing, and telling yourself your life story, really. But when every single time without fail, when we do that, there emerges a pattern. It becomes very, very clear, I think, first to me, but then soon after. I don't usually typically need to highlight it, although sometimes I do, but then they'll go, oh my God, yes. Yeah. These patterns will emerge, and it will be these cycles of behavior or these patterns that have continuously occurred throughout your life. And they'll be in different, they're manifested in different ways, in different circumstances, but the actual pattern is the same. Yeah. And that is where you go, oh my gosh, I've never realized that before. Yeah. And you get this like massive clarity, whereas before you just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this behavior? Why does this keep happening to me? Yeah. And then you realize, like, oh my, or sometimes you don't even have that thought.
No.
And you never actually realize that, oh my gosh, this has been repeating throughout my whole life.
True.
Anyway, it brings the awareness to it. And this is the whole thing. This is what I always say, isn't it? Awareness is the first step. You have to be aware, because if it's under your awareness, subconscious, you can't change it. You're out of control because you don't know it's happening. As soon as you become aware of it, you become conscious, which puts you into the driver's seat and gives you the ability to be able to stop it or change it, or at least pick up that you're doing it and then start making, changes to be able to do something about it. But if you don't know it's there, you can't do anything about it. Right. So once we've had that chat, we've become very aware that we have these patterns and these cycles that have been repeating. Typically, that is what will guide your past life.
Yeah.
So before you come and have a QHHT session, this is where it kind of differs again from a regular past life session. I will ask you to come in with a list of questions.
Yeah.
And these questions can literally be anything. They can be what I call like 3D questions, like very much everyday life questions. What am I supposed to do with my kids? How can I best help my kids? What am I supposed to do in my relationship? Should I be in this job? Do I need to have another job? Very much 3D questions like that, all the way up to these esoteric questions like, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
Do I have any psychic abilities? What have I come down to the earth to learn? Have I been in lives before with such and such and such? Am I from a different star system? I've had so many kind of questions that would probably seem really crazy and out there, but to me, I can see people are a bit embarrassed when they have any questions. I'm like, this is nothing I haven't seen before. Yes, and you'll be able to answer that for you. All sorts of stuff. I've had some wild stuff, because bear in mind, a lot of people that come to me are already in that spiritual world, and they've already had experiences with the other side, or with this unseen world energy, crossed over loved ones, aliens, and different kinds of beings, all sorts. I have literally had it all. And I think dependent on who that person is and the experiences they've had, that their higher selves are different. They're in line with that. I think it's just different levels of consciousness, and it's quite interesting to see that as well. So anyway, as part of the session, that talk, the first 2 hours, I will then ask to see your questions. We'll go through your questions so I can understand exactly what you want to know. What am I asking for? I can give it kind of advice for what questions you might want to ask as well, because obviously I do this a lot. I know the type of questions that can be asked and answered. And then people are like, oh yeah, I'd like to know that. I'd like to know that. And then we're ready to go into the hypnosis part of it. I will obviously explain to everybody exactly what we're going to do, how it works, what the aim is, what it's going to feel like, or what you might experience, and basically put everybody's mind at rest, because people are kind of like, oh, what if it doesn't work? What am I supposed to do? And I've kind of learnt the best way to go about alleviating those fears so that you can have the best experience you can get and get your past life experience. So then we go into the past life. These past lives are never what you expect. And most of them are mundane. Everyone always thinks, oh, I've been Cleopatra, I've been Joan of Arc, if you've heard my past life, like my previous episodes we've spoken about Joan, or, I've been someone wonderful and interesting, and majority of the time you're just an average Joe, peasant, going through some, a lot of the lives, most of the lives are something's kind of big has happened. There might be some like dark times in there. There are some lives that are just lovely and just wonderful and just full of life, because those people need to see that is possible for them. They need to remember that has been possible for them, and that it's whatever you need to see. So whatever past life you see, because believe me, in my opinion, in my experience, you've had many past lives, and not just in this dimension, in other dimensions as well, other planets. You've been rocks, you've been trees, you've been insects, Like, I've had it all, and there's lessons in all of them. For the most part, we do go back to human lives.
Have you had anybody who's
all of that,
like a rock and a
all of it, and there's always lessons to learn from it, and it makes so much sense. And a lot of the time, obviously, not a lot happens when you're a rock.
No, exactly.
So we move through the life, we get whatever we need to know, and then they'll go into another life. So you know, we have you don't sometimes you don't just experience one past life. I've had people that I think the most I've done, a lot of people leapfrog into different lives, and I'm like, oh my God, where are we now? Because this doesn't stack up with what you just told me. And then it becomes very clear that they're a different person. I think I've had the most is probably about 6 lives we went to.
Wow.
Yeah, but each one of them, there was a reason that they needed to be in those lives. And I could see why.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the majority of people, it's one life, and we learn the lesson through it, and that's enough. That the subconscious is happy with that. But you know, like I said, whatever life you go to is exactly the one that you need to see to help you heal in this life. It becomes very obvious from the patterns that we've spoken about and identified in that chat as to why you are seeing the life that you are seeing. And the thing is you know, people that don't, this is the great thing. Even if you don't necessarily believe in past lives, whether you're completely against it or you just aren't sure, it doesn't stop a past life regression from having healing benefits. Because whether or not you believe in past lives, so I mean, for example, my sister, I did one on my sister. She really doesn't believe in past lives necessarily. To be fair, she's probably more on the side of not believing that in them. But she had a past life experience. She was emotional. She was crying, because you become that person. You feel that person's feelings. You know who you are. Like, you know that you are an anxious person, whereas in this life you could be quite very, you know, confident. It's not something that you relate to, but when you're in hypnosis, you are that person. You feel that person's feelings. You know their thoughts. You know why you're feeling a certain way. You are just immersed in that life, and so that's why you feel the emotions. Which she did, and she learnt the lessons. They were very, very relevant to what we were talking about. They made complete sense to her, and she still walked out of the room and she said, I still don't know whether that was a past life. I don't believe that was a past life. But I said, but whatever happens, even if it was your, you know, conscious brain, your subconscious brain making up a story to help you, you know, with the patterns that we've just identified, have you had an aha moment? Have you had a realization? Has it helped you? And she said, yes. And it changed her. Like, the realization she had from that past life regression helped her to move on from this pattern and have realizations. And so this is what it doesn't matter
if you think it's real.
Exactly. I said, I don't care. My job isn't to make people walk out here and believe in past lives. I don't care. I want the healing from it. I want them to be able to take it from this life now and live this life to the best they can, to their highest potential, to realize their power, and to realize that there is a lot of things that have either, have either been carried over from a past life, if you believe that, or you're blocking yourself from, and your subconscious has created it, and whatever, your subconscious mind knows exactly what you need to see to heal it, to understand it, and to get it gone so you can move forward. And I'm happy. And either way, this is what happens in those sessions. But me personally, I cannot not believe in past lives. I can't, from what I've seen, what I've experienced, the way the story comes together. You know, when people first go into the past lives, most of them don't know what they're seeing or where they are. I just have to get very good at asking them to describe what it is they're experiencing. And at the start, that, you know, it might just be like, well, I can see some stones and the sky's there. I can see the sky. I think I can hear some clopping or something. And then the more I just ask questions, and I'm just cool with that, you know, just explain, all of a sudden this picture opens up and they go, oh my God, I'm in a street. I can see it. It's cobblestone streets. There's horses and carriages walking past me. I can see the house. This is my street. I live here. This is there's the shop that I go to, and straight there, and then I'm like, yes, they're in, because that's all it's so jumbled at first, and yet everything, as the story progresses, everything I can see, they can't, because they're just in it, living it. You've experienced it.
Yeah.
You're in it, living it. You're the person, aren't you? But me sat here guiding them, just asking them questions. I'm like laughing to myself, because I think, I know exactly where this is going. I know why you're seeing this life. And I realised what it's trying to teach you from the patterns that you've been repeating in this lifetime. And so for me, I just find it very, very hard to be. If people were going to make things up, they wouldn't make it up in the way that it gets made up here, because it's not logical. It doesn't make sense to make it up that way. If you were going to make it up, you'd make it so much easier. It would be so much more kind of like simple. It's hilarious. And but whatever happens, you have that past life regression. It gives you, because this is the key, and I think this is what I want to get across. I think this is what I've realized is so important. If I sat here, or any therapist sat here and said to you, this is why you're feeling a certain way, because in your past life you had this happen to you, and you've now carried it over, and you're still reliving what you learned back then into this lifetime, you would just go, that doesn't help me. It makes no sense, because even if you understood it, even if it made sense logically up here to you, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't help you change. No. When you're lying on that couch, that bed, and you are in that life, and you become that person, and you feel that person's feelings, you have their thoughts, you have their feelings, you've had their experience, and you know what they've gone through. Something inside it switches from just knowing it intellectually up here, and you feel it in every part of your body. It becomes you, because you've experienced it, and so you integrate that understanding that you could have potentially understood consciously if I told you it sat in your chair. But it goes further than that. It goes deeper than that, because you feel it and you can understand it, because it's part of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like I know it makes sense, because you've experienced it, haven't you? But I hope that's making sense to you guys listening. That's the power of regression. And that's actually the power of regression, whether you're doing past life regression or the normal everyday this life regression that I do in my sessions. Right. It gives you that complete integration and understanding, which is then what allows you to move on and change, because you just go, right. It's like, I always use this example. It's like you can read a book about how to ride a bicycle as much as you want. You read it, you step on the bike, you have to hold your balance. You put one foot on the pedal, and then as you're putting that foot on the pedal, you push down and you put your other leg up on the pedal, and then you push, right. So you could read that over and over again and have that knowledge of, I know that's how I ride a bike. But until you actually get on that bike and experience how it feels to put your foot on that pedal and to have that balance like that you have to ride a bike, you will never be able to ride a bike properly. No. But once you get on there and you do it, you're like, oh, I get it now. I get what that book was trying to tell me. Now I've experienced it. It's exactly the same thing with regression. You can know and understand a concept of how you need to change this belief that you hold, whatever that belief is, whether that belief is men always treat me badly, or you have this overlying fear of, you probably don't realize, but say a fear of loss. And so you hold on to people so tightly because, and it makes you become very controlling, and then all of the issues that come on. But what you actually don't realize is if I said to you, well, it's because you're worried about losing them. You would just go, what? No, it's not. But then when you experience a life where you've lost people, you can then go, oh my gosh, I get it, I understand it, and then let it go. Understanding that that doesn't have to be that way all the time. I understand why I feel that way. Then you can have a different story, a chat to yourself, can't you? When you then start feeling a fear or something, you can be like, oh right, okay, I know why. It's fine. No one's going anywhere. It's okay. I'm safe. They're safe. Let it go. So that's the power of regression. And really, honestly, that's the whole point of past life. That's the healing that you can get. But QHHT goes one step further than that. Because once we've done the past life regression, I will always take you to your death, because that's the kind of girl I am. Morbid like that. But so this is one of the most important things, like your death. A lot of things can be learnt and realized at your death. And there obviously a lot of trauma can be caused from a death as well. So I've had a lot of people who have died in a certain way, and that's why they have a phobia of water, for example, or a phobia of knives, whatever. So that can be healing in itself, but it's always healing. It can be extra helpful if you have a phobia or if you have some kind of issue relating to that specifically. Sometimes a health issue. Sometimes people have been maybe like, this is just an example, this isn't actually real, but I can't think of any real ones right now. But for example, if they've been killed and murdered by being stabbed in their side, for example, they could find that all of their life they've had this issue with their side here. They've always had constant pain here, or a chronic kind of pain that there's been they've gone to the doctors and there's been no reason for them to have this pain. Doctors can't find anything wrong with them, and so they just had to suffer with it. And then by realizing, oh my gosh, it's because I got stabbed in a previous life. Your body can let it go. Your consciousness lets it go. Whatever. I don't really understand the ins and outs of it, but something has been transferred and you've carried it over. And by seeing it, experiencing it, realizing what it was, that pain will just go away. And I've had that happen loads of times, not specifically with the side. There's been stuff with the chest and the heart, digestive issue, all sorts of stuff. But so that can happen as well. So just that in itself, my gosh, if you've been, bothered by lower back pain for all of your life, I can speak to that. Just to have this session and be able to walk out and not have that anymore is transformational in itself. Forget any of the other learnings that you learn. So death scene. But then the interesting thing is that you can go and see your body. So you come out after you've died, you then get to be out of your body and look down and see what have you learned from this life? Now you are out of this body. Now you are not that body. You are your consciousness, your soul, whatever it is you want to be. That in itself is quite incredible to experience, isn't it? Because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not that. I'm not that meat soup, as I like to call it, as everybody loves. That's not who I am. I still exist after that. Just having that kind of understanding and experience can be pretty kind of, mind opening. Yeah. Because so many of us don't think that's what happens after death, that we don't continue to exist. When you all of a sudden are having a very real experience of that not being the case, it makes you change the way you think about things. That happened with my husband. Story for another time maybe. But so then you're looking down and you're seeing what's happening after your kind of death, and you can realize, because you're detached from that identity, you can realize why you had that life, what you learned from that life, the mistakes you made in that life that you wish you had done differently, and what you have learned and taken away from that. And then none of this is like punitive, or like you're not judging yourself, or there's no punishment here. It is just literally like, damn it, I wanted to learn it. I could have learned. I wasted, so the amount of people I've had say, I wasted that life. I could have done this, and this, and I wasted it. That in itself is a huge learning, because maybe like that helps you to stop like procrastinating in this life and just crack on, stop being scared, like take the action that you want to take. That sometimes is enough to push you into action if you're feeling stagnant and stuck right now. So there's a lot of learnings that you can learn there. And then this is where it kind of changes for everyone. Some people just are then floating around, because then I say, what happens next? Because I want to know where you going next. After you've left that body, you might see your funeral, you feel all the feelings of everybody else around you. Then most people will tell me they start getting pulled away. There's this force that kind of takes them, and they can feel themselves being pulled away. And although they can't stop it, they don't want to stop it. It's not a horrible force. A lot of them, it is drawn towards a light or a tunnel. There's this darkness that people talk about, but it's not a scary darkness. It's a really loving darkness. It's just very quiet. There's just nothing. And then you have, and some people are different. Some people don't have, afterwards they're just like, I'm just floating and I can't get them anywhere else. And that's fine. They're obviously not supposed to see. Many people will then do the moving on. You experienced it, didn't you? Yeah. There's, people say how all their family members are there. This is when people just start crying, but out of, they've been crying for half the session because they're sad because of the life they've experienced. And they get to this place I've got goosebumps all up my legs. They get to this place and they're crying with joy because over and over and over again, I can't tell you how many times people say there's just so much love here. It's just I'm so happy, I'm so at peace, it's just wonderful. All my loved ones are here. There's people I don't even recognize, but I know them, and they love me and I love them, and they're cheering me on and they're saying well done, like you're back home, and there's like a celebration, and like you've done so well done, like well done, good for you. and they're just, I just have such joy looking at their faces, because they're just you can't make that up. No. Again, as much as I see people getting really emotional and upset, and it's very hard to witness when they're getting, I can see the pain on their face when they're in this life, this past life that they're living. But I know that it's all for the good, because I know that they're learning from this, from experiencing this pain. That's horrible to see. But as horrible as that is to see, when I see them go to that place and I can see the love and the wonder and the joy and the peace and the, like, so many people just can't speak. There's no words to describe what they're experiencing in this place. And this is one of the things that I said, like, I hear it time and time and time again, from people who don't necessarily believe that there is anything after death, or that they know, or they don't know what's after death, and they're telling me the same things. And this hospital that people go to, a lot of them went after particularly like not very nice life, traumatic lives, they'll go to this hospital that they tell me about, this place where they recover after a life, they recover from this life on earth, and there's beings over there that work on their energy using light and sound and colour, and that's what heals them. And again, I've had it, I think you've told me that before in one of yours, it all blends into one. I'm pretty sure that you've told me about this place with light, and where they work on you with your energy, and I'm sure you have. But yeah, I've just heard it so many times, and I just think, well, it solidified my belief in it, because I can't hear the same thing over and over and think that it can't be real. I can't.
Yeah. And interesting from your perspective, watching it happen in front of you, because like you say, they're in it, whereas you're seeing it.
I'm just seeing their faces, I'm seeing how their body reacts, like they're just,
we can't see that when we're in the chair, so we're sort of we don't know how it's coming across to you, but you can see that we're somewhere else. You?
And it's lovely. It's just wonderful. And so I let people stay there for a little while. I just let them enjoy it, and most of them don't want to come away. But we've still got some work to do, because we've got the last section of the session, which is where I call in the higher self. Now, Dolores Cannon calls it the subconscious, but she always said it was not the subconscious that she's talking about, like, that I talk about, with which hold your habits and your limiting beliefs and all of that. She just couldn't think of another name for it, so she called it the subconscious. They don't care. They say you can call us whatever you want. A lot of the time when it comes through, it is a they. When you have this kind of higher consciousness come through. But whatever happens, it will always talk about the person as, so, yours would say, Becky is such and such. I don't know if my higher self was talking, it would say, Tasha is a pain because she does this, 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 and this. But it's always with love. But the higher self, so we bring the higher self through. And again, by this time, you've been in hypnosis for, well, it depends how your regression goes, but it's usually for about an hour or so, sometimes more. So you're pretty deep in hypnosis, which is what allows your higher self to channel through into you, which sounds a bit weird and it sounds scary, but it's not. And you are there, and sometimes, depending on the person, there is a fight that I can see. There's a battle between the conscious mind trying to get in and the subconscious trying to push past, and sometimes the conscious mind will stop it, and I've got ways and means to be able to just go, let it go, like let the subconscious come through, and then you can feel it pulling back, because this higher self is like a different personality. People's voices change. They'll speak in, like, some people will have this really posh accent come through. Other people will have like a bit of a geek, like Chris. I know with Chris, his higher self was this bloody London Cockney. All right, what's the pairs? Where does that come from? Other people will just sound a lot wiser. I don't know what there's this, it's like energy that comes through, and it just feels like a wiser energy. They'll start speaking more slowly. They'll use different words, and it's like they'll construct sentences together that don't sound like their normal type of language. So it becomes really, really apparent when I get that higher self come in, because it is like a different entity that comes through. And this is where I ask all of the questions. This is where I ask the people's questions, and like, what's your life purpose? And the higher self will tell you exactly what you need to hear. Now, a lot of the time, it's what you already know, because you are in touch with your higher self. This is your intuition coming through, but that is really great because it helps you to be able to trust yourself. And again, because this voice is coming through you, and it's saying it in a different way, in a kind way, in a loving way, you believe it, because it doesn't feel like your own words, because you sure as hell don't talk to yourself in that, well, most people don't talk to themselves in that loving, kind way. But also then it gives bigger answers, or you start asking the big questions, it gives you these answers. It helps you. I always ask, why did you show Becky, for instance, why did you show Becky that life? And then it will explain why it showed that life, and what the learnings were for, which again serves as more integration of those lights. So you learn something from the past life, but then you get even deeper learnings when your higher self comes through and explains on a whole nother deeper level what that life showed. So that's really interesting as well, because you get like a whole nother level. And then we can do, once we've answered all the questions, lots of stuff comes out there. You can imagine, depending on the questions, you learn a lot about yourself there. Then we can do the healings. And so we have like, I asked the higher self to scan the body from top to bottom and pick up anything that is wrong, anything that is addressing. And then they'll go through, and different higher selves pick up it in different ways. And then they'll say, I've picked up something in the heart area. This is such and such and such and such. You should go to the doctors and get this checked out. Or I've picked something up in the ovaries. This is nothing to worry about. It's fine. Continue going. I've picked up. So they'll go through, and then this is where I get to like have a little bit of fun. And I'm like, so now I know the power that you hold. Can you please heal this for her? And they'll say, no, we can't do that. And I'll, come on now. I know you can. I know you can do this. Oh, okay, fine. All right. So then they'll start healing things. People, that's one of the questions that I ask in the interview, in the chat. Is there any health concerns you have? Any health issues, anything that's bothering you? Most people will have something. And I'll say, okay, fine, that's right. We'll ask if they can heal that. And this is where I'll ask them, more than likely on the scan, it gets picked up. And then I'll say, can you please heal this? And then they do. And then I ask them, what are you doing? How are you healing this? And every single time the higher self will say, I'm sending healing light energy to the part. I'm using energy, I'm using light, I'm using the warmth to do whatever it is we need to do. It's the same all the time. It's all about this light energy. And people will feel like warmth and heat around their body. Now at the time, they're not knowing that. I might know, because the higher self will say, Becky's getting a bit hot, can you take the blanket off? And someone will take the blanket off, because you're in that, they're in control at that time, and you're kind of just, your body's there. But when they wake up, they'll go, why is my knee so warm? Why is my, and I'll say, oh, you'll see, listen back to your recording, because I record it all for you so you can hear it. But I've had some incredible healings. Some incredible. And some of them will start talking about chakras as well. So they'll say the heart chakra needs a little bit of opening or something. Or I'm going to release some energy from the solar plexus chakra. And they'll tell me why and how it's affecting their lives. And I'll always say, how will this be better? What will this do for Becky? Or, and they'll tell me. And this is where I can play a little bit as well, because I don't always stick to what's on the, obviously on the onto the questions, because I've got to know this person really well. After speaking to them for 2 hours about their whole life, I almost serve as you, and I would think, okay, so what would Becky want answers to, or what would Becky want healing, or how could I help Becky with this? And I'll ask the higher self to do it on your behalf. And they'll like say, sometimes they say, we can't do that. She needs to have that neck pain for a reason. This neck pain reminds her that she has to support herself, for example, or whatever, or they need to have this hearing issue because this is what they've chosen in this life, and this isn't something we can. So then I'll say, I'll keep trying. I mean, I'm a trier. I'll say, well, can you turn it down a little bit? You know, if it's pain, I'll say, can you turn the pain down a little bit so it's more manageable? Because it's very hard to live here in this human life. They forget sometimes that what it's like to live down here. And they'll say, yeah, okay, we'll turn it down. Or I've had some people that have had a bit of deafness and they say, no, we can't take it away. And I'll say, well, can you just get rid of the ringing? Or, you know, because that's really distracting. Yes, okay, we'll do that.
Yes.
And so most of the time they will heal it, but sometimes they say, no, not yet. Or we'll turn it down, but she has to do the work in order to release this herself. This is part of the work that she needs. Other times I'll say it's not necessary. She can let this go now. She's learned this lesson. We'll remove this pain, or this illness or whatever, you know? So, once we've done that, that's it. We wake you up. The person is like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. Sometimes they remember things, always remember the past lives. Sometimes they remember the higher self coming through. Sometimes they don't. It all depends. They definitely feel the effects of the energy that was coming through them throughout the healing and the higher self. And it takes a little while to integrate what's kind of happened in the room. They walk away, they're like, wow, thanks, what's just happened? I'm not sure. And then I always say to listen to the recording, because Dolores always said that you will get more healings when you listen to the recording, because there is some stuff that inevitably, because you've been so much in the life that you've missed. And so when you listen back to the recordings, you can get like aha moments from that. But that is a past life regression. But I've spoken quite a lot on that, but I just want to quickly pass over to you as you've experienced it, and just let people know from your point of view how it feels to experience it. So obviously we had the chat, didn't we? We had the chat at the beginning, and we worked out that you had this fear of, what was it? What did we say? You just had a fear of life, of losing people around you.
It was just fear from holding me back from doing certain things. Fear of what I don't know, but probably ultimately just a fear of something bad happening, or maybe someone dying, whatever. It wasn't very specific. It was just the fear, like of that. No, that doesn't feel right. Something bad might happen,
and it was holding you back from living, really, in a way, wasn't it?
Because if you're living your life worried all the time about something bad happening, you're not living, are you? It's not really any point to that, is there? You want to enjoy it while you can, you know. And that was creeping into everyday sort of situations. So that was my question, wasn't it? Was
that was the theme that came up when we were talking, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So then when they took me back to this life, and it all became apparent, didn't it, that it was so clever, taking me back to where I needed to go, just as you said. So I went back to, I don't know how because I was a little bit in and out, like you say. I don't remember everything.
And it was a while ago now.
It was a while ago. But I've got like glimmers of, quite a few like glimmers of what was going on. So I don't know if I looked down at my feet first, did I?
Yeah,
Tash?
So I'll always get you to look down. That's one of the questions I say. Look down at your feet, what you're wearing.
Yes. I think I had some kind of shoe on, did I?
I can't remember. Maybe a sandal.
All I sort of remember was like the Hessian skirt or dress, whatever it was, long, that itchy, horrible material, brown.
When you were talking about it, it definitely made me think of kind of like, you know, real kind of middle age, like stone age, out of the Stone Age, because you've obviously got some kind of clothes on, but it was very much
like round houses,
mud houses, and you did explain to me where you lived in your hut and etc., which I think is why in my mind I've got that you lived in that kind of Saxony kind of time. Sorry, carry on.
And I just remember this Hessian outfit, and then I think you took me to my house, and as Tash said, she gets you to look around, because you're like, oh yeah, well I can see this, but where do I go now? You definitely need to be guided, don't you? And then your vision just sort of expands, and like you said, then you jump into this whole picture, don't you? And I remember you taking me into the mud hut. and it was all just like a table in there and maybe a fireplace, and that was it. Straw on the floor for the bed, very glamorous. And when did I say about the necklace?
So that was when you would have said that, because when I asked you to look at your feet and then tell me what you're wearing, I say, you wearing any jewellery or anything?
Yes.
And that was when you said about the necklace around your neck. So that was before you went to your house.
Okay.
This was very early on, which is what this is what showed me that you had gone into this life really quickly. Because you're just talking, you're telling me you're wearing this Hessian dress and you've got these sandals on and you're a girl and you're fairly young. You told me you're very young. And then I said, are you wearing any jewellery? And you said, yes, I have this necklace round my neck. And then you just started crying. You like sobbing. And I was like, what's going on here? And then because you told me that it was your mum's.
Yes. Yeah.
And she died.
That's right. I don't remember the crying, but I remember the necklace and and feeling that emotion of that was reminding me that I'd lost someone. Like my worst fear in this life was in that life.
And you were young, because you said you would. So just we did this past life probably about 2 years ago, but I just quickly grabbed out my notes to remind me of what it was. And Becky said that she had lost her mum at 14. So you were a bit old when you jumped into the body. I think you were a bit older. You were probably more like 19, 20. Right. But when you touched this necklace, it was like all those emotions came back, and that was when you told me that you had lost your mum at 14. And how much you loved her. And I could, again, it was like you can't fake it. The emotion that was on your, I mean, you were crying your eyes out. That's like not normal anyway, is it, when you're making something up?
No,
you don't.
No, it's not.
You don't have those emotions when you make something up.
Why would you become so emotional if you're just sort of like, oh, I've got to say something, you know? Well, you wouldn't be connecting with it like that, would you?
No.
So that was the first like big emotion, wasn't it? And then somewhere along the line, I realised that I had also lost my dad and my brothers in a battle, and I guess I'd been left in this mud hut all by myself. And obviously I was very upset about that. But I did go on to meet a man and get married and have children and be very happy and live a happy life. And obviously what it was trying to tell me was that you can lose, you are going to realise your biggest fear and lose people around you, and it's going to be sad, but you can go on. You don't stop living. So it was so clear why they sent me that.
And what even more, like your point, again, just because I remember more than you do and reading your notes, it wasn't only that you can go on, but the important thing you stressed was that you can still find happiness as well. Not only can you just go on and survive.
Didn't have a miserable, depressing life because of it. I went on and had a wonderful life. And then you did take me to my funeral, which was a quite a cool one, wasn't it? Because I was sent out into some kind of lake. There was water, and I was dressed up in sort of like white linen and flowers in my hair, and on like this raft, and they pushed me out. I feel like it was a lake, but maybe that led out into the sea. I don't know. But I think the point of that was that it was a lovely funeral, and there were lots of people there because I had a nice life and a good life, and they did this whole ceremony for me. I think that's what it was showing me with that.
And you felt really loved, you said.
Yes, So I think that's why they showed me that funeral, to say, look, you went on, you had a great life, and look, your send-off was amazing. So drop the fear. You don't need to be focused on that. And actually, I really did, didn't I?
From that time, you really did.
I really did.
And it was in every aspect of your life, wasn't it?
Yeah. Scared of losing people, scared of going places, scared of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, all of that.
Even small things like scared of, if you did something on your phone and someone, would... I don't know, there would be some kind of ramification that you would get what's the word, like fraud or something, like, you know, like it was just fear of scams. It was fear of everything, and you just dropped it all, didn't you? You were just like, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, I'll be fine, because you had that you felt that you experienced that life, didn't you, of that girl who lost everything close to her, and yet still you felt the love and happiness that you experienced in that life, and it showed you, it's not that it shows you, it changes your beliefs, doesn't it? You had a belief that if you lost everything, that would just be the worst thing that could happen to you, and nothing, you wouldn't ever be happy, and it would just be awful. In that moment, by experiencing that life, it changed your belief, like that, to say, actually, even if I lose everything, I can still be happy, I can be okay, and I can even be happy. And that's what made you, it changed the way you lived your whole life.
And when I was under, what I'd say is, what in terms of what I could feel, is that I could feel in that first one that we did, the energy in my stomach. So I guess your solar plexus, that's where I was feeling it, to the point where I was a little bit worried, wasn't I, that I was not going to feel very well. But it was fine, it passed. And then obviously my next session, I knew that was all, we talked about it afterwards, didn't we? And we sort of thought that was the energy that I was feeling, because
that was specifically when we brought your higher self through.
Yes, that's right. That was when my higher self came through. I could feel it coming through me. That wasn't in the past life bit, was it? It was when we called my higher self Robin, by the way. So she's very wise.
We've spoken to Robin a few times now, so she has the name. We had to name her, didn't we?
We did, So I could feel that. And she was, it's like your, I guess, if you haven't been under hypnosis, you could compare it to like meditating a little bit. So you're present, aren't you? You're very much there, and you could get up and leave whenever you needed to. But with the help of that chat before and your guidance, you are taken to this whole other place, and you've just got to, I guess, let go. And like sometimes you'd say to people, don't you, just say what you see, sort of thing, and then everything will start to make sense. And that's what you got to just go with that.
You're very, very good at doing that. You're really good at just surrendering and letting go. Other people struggle, but what I always say is that if you feel like you're making it up, you're doing it right. You've got to, there's like a doorway. There's and you to open up to this subconscious, and it starts by using your imagination, because your imagination is the way that you communicate with your subconscious mind, the way it communicates with you. So the best way to open that door and allow it to come in is to use your imagination. And it feels like you're making it up, because we've been conditioned to think that our imagination is just all make-believe and made up, and actually it's a very powerful tool to access this unseen world, this unlimited knowledge that we have, that we are a part of. And so when you feel like you're making it up, you are encouraging that doorway to open. I like to see it as that. This is how I see it anyway. You're encouraging that doorway to open until eventually you stop having to feel like you're making it up, and it just flows because your subconscious takes over. But it's like you have to open the door for your subconscious to come through, and just give it a minute. And the more you can drop that, don't worry about what you're saying, if it feels crazy or if it feels silly. Just tell me. And I'm quite good at having that chat beforehand to put your mind at rest, to make you understand that. But you also, when you're saying these things that you feel like you're making up, I'm very good at just being like, brilliant, good. And what else do you see? Because for me, you're doing exactly what I need you to do, and I'm going to be able to get you there much quicker if you just allow yourself to feel like a child and go with it. Absolutely. That's where the magic is. But like you, when your subconscious came through, you experience it, don't you, as almost like you said to me, like you feel like you almost step back to like the back of your head or the back of your body, and then you feel this energy wave through you, don't you?
That's how I felt, like you do become two people. And yes, I took a back seat, and that's why I could feel it all going on in my body. But it's hard, isn't it, to let go. So that's what I was sort of consciously doing. stepping back, trying to let her come through, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's very cool, you know, it's not scary at all, and it's just, you know, and the more you do it, the more you'd get good at it, don't you? You know, and can tap into it a lot quicker. But she told us some good stuff, didn't she? And like I say, you don't really remember. Some people, I guess, remember all of it. Some people, none of it, and others bits and bobs. So it's like important to have you there, and the recording and everything.
And the recording's really important, isn't it? And I think for you forgot most of it. You didn't know what was being said because you are a particularly good channel. Not everybody is as good as letting go and surrendering as you are. Nevertheless, they still have a great experience. But I think for you are able to step back, which is why you don't necessarily remember everything. And I found, like, you know, I was said earlier in the podcast that there's this fight between the conscious and the subconscious. I would see it with you as well. And when you came back in, I could almost kind of feel you come back in, and because the energy changes and your voice changes and what you're saying changes, and then it's like, and that's the parts you remember. So when I would ask you afterwards, do you remember this? And you'd say, oh, well, I remember saying da 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 da. And I remember that was the time when I felt like you would come back in, and then you'd step back out again. Yes. And then, you know, your higher self, Robin, could come back through. And that's when you'd not really be aware of what she's saying. And, you know, Robin is very wise. She was like an old lady. Yes. Almost like an old lady energy. Yeah. Very calm, very wise. Yeah. Very just like...
Yeah, just knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And interesting, when I had the past life the second time, it's never the same, is it?
No.
So the second time I had it, I was on Tash's special couch, and I don't know what was going on with me.
That was the third time, actually.
Was it the third time?
Yeah.
But wow, I was off. I was flying around consciously flying around up above Tash's hut, you know, shouting out, wee, woo.
You weren't in your body,
just,
were you?
No. And you were like, I was just leave me up there and talk to...
Yeah.
Was that when my higher self came through? I was off up there.
Yeah. So she was literally... So Becky, because I've done it so many times with Becky now, we have a keyword, and I can just say the keyword. Becky goes into hypnosis. So the higher self, we don't do past lives like we said. They said she doesn't need to do it anymore.
That's right.
So we just bring the higher self through. And Becky's got... I'm speaking for all of probably about... 7 minutes, and she's already, you're gone. The higher self comes through, and literally this time her higher self has said, Becky's up floating, she's spinning around, she's fine. And I was like, well, can I speak to you then, please? And I spoke to her and asked all the questions we wanted to ask, and she's telling me what's happening, and I'm obviously checking in with Becky. So I'm like, is Becky okay? She's fine, she's up, she's floating around. And then, you know, we're doing all the work, and then when you came back through, you confirmed it, didn't you? You said, Tash, I don't know what was being said down there, because I was up floating around, like I felt like I was out on a roller coaster,
like having a lovely time. I totally let go. And well, I don't know why. I mean, I would say I was at a point in time where I needed to go and have some fun and fly around and be free. And I feel maybe that's why I was doing that, or maybe I was doing it because I was getting better at letting my higher self, Robin, come through. And I just was like, right, I'll leave you to it. I'm off. I don't know, but again, not the same as the experiences before.
No.
But never scary.
No.
Always interesting, and always a really good point to wherever they take you, or whatever they want to tell you at that time. They'll always take you right back to where you're supposed to go at that time.
It's everything you need to know, and there is absolutely no way consciously that you could ever come to that those understandings and those learnings without having that experience. And it's quite incredible, isn't it? How everything can seem so random when you're going through this past life, and then at the end of it all makes so much sense.
That's right. That's what it was. It was like random. Like you say, you just piecing together this story, and then when you come back round, you can see exactly why you went there and what it was there to tell you and teach you.
And you can walk into the session with all this kind of like in this fog, and you can walk out with so much clarity, and it just seems so simple, and you think, how did I not realize that? How did I not? But thank goodness I now do, because it's so simple, and I can move forward. And I just want to say before we finish this, because I see we've been going on for an hour about but the higher self says some lovely things. And I always ask, is there anything that you know, this is being recorded as my last question. When we're done, I'll always ask the higher self, is there anything that you want to let such and such know? Anything you want to tell her, knowing that she's listening to this recording? And they always say the same thing. You're so loved. You're so guided. You're amazing. You're powerful. You can do anything you want to do. Keep shining your light. You know, it's the same thing. These higher selves tell these people the same things over and over again. And they're all such kind, loving, empowering words. And I think there's something to be said for hearing all these kind things being said out of your voice, but you're not actually aware you're necessarily saying them, but they're coming from your voice, and you're hearing it from your voice, and it does something. I think it really does.
Well, that's your higher self, isn't it? That is part of you. And we're not really programmed to talk to ourselves lovingly like that. Then all of a sudden it shows you another way how you should be talking to yourself in your conscious mind. So that's a really good thing to take on from that. Definitely. Just channel that higher self.
Exactly. And this is the thing, again, I'll say with one last comment here, is like I said to you, a lot of the stuff that's said you already know, even if it's not like, oh well, I knew that, not necessarily, but when it's said, it's like, I knew that, you know, that's what I keep telling myself, but I can't hear it. And it helps you realize that you are so much more in touch with your intuition than you think. And that little quiet voice that you hear but ignore because all the fear and all the negative talk is so loud and outweighs it, that's your intuition. And when you hear it on this, you know, your higher self saying it, it helps you to be able to tune into that voice and maybe listen to it a little bit more, knowing that you are in touch with your higher self, and you are so connected, and just let that volume be turned up a little bit, and let the negative talk, which is not your higher self and it's just your programming and your fear, just quiet that down and listen to the truth, your true higher self. And that can be really powerful as well.
Amazing. Namaste.
So with that was, you know, like we said, this was a much requested episode. It's tough to know what to talk about with past life, because I mean, I could talk about it all day. There's so many stories. You know, we could go into the whole kind of concept of past lives and why we keep reincarnating. You know, there's so much I've learned from past lives as to why we keep reincarnating, you know, just because we want to keep learning these lessons. And some lessons can carry over not only just one but multiple past lives. And this could be the life where you break that pattern. How many times have you been repeating this pattern in how many lives? Like, you can stop that pattern now. You can break it in this lifetime. And I think that's what a lot of us have come here to do in this specific lifetime, is break all of those things that we've been repeating over and over again. This is a time for change. And you know, how lucky are we that we now have these types of therapies that can help us do that. And it's accepted, and it's quite, you know, you probably be able to find it wherever you live. There'll be someone who'll be able to help you do this. I just think it's really powerful. And you're not only breaking them for yourself and in, you know, in your next incarnations, but also you're healing. Let's not get too trippy here. Sorry, guys, but you're healing those parts of you, those lifetimes. By doing the work now, you're healing those people back then, because there is no time and there is not really past lives. Everything is happening now. Everything is going on now. So when you're focusing your consciousness from this life onto that past life, you are actually going there, because it's happening now and you're healing that life. And that has consequences for your present life and your future life. And I'm going to leave it there because it's already been an hour. But there's a lot more we could talk about with past lives, and we probably will. But I'd love it if you could come in the group and just ask some questions. If you have questions, like, and you want to know more, ask them. Because, you know, just a few questions, we could probably do a whole podcast episode based on those questions. one or two, and loads of other stuff will come up that can be really helpful, because like I said, doing past life regressions, understanding the information that's come through these higher selves in the multiple past life regressions that I have done, that Dolores Cannon has done and I've read about, has really, really helped me in my spiritual journey. It's helped me expand my consciousness. It's helped me open up my mind to seeing new things and realizing having new beliefs that we are not programmed to have in this lifetime. And these beliefs are only empowering, and they are only there to make you understand your true power and break down all these kind of beliefs that we have got in this kind of society that we're living, that's been going on for thousands of years. I'm so grateful to past lives, to the understanding of what past lives can give you, and to the learnings that I've learned from them, that I don't think I'd be where I am in my spiritual journey now without them.
No.
So yes, if anyone's considering a past life regression, I hope that we have given some reasons as to why it would be helpful and healing for you. And we haven't gone into all of them. I could talk for ages. We haven't gone into all of them. They're the main ones. It's not just about, interesting, who am I in my past life? There are so many. You can understand karmic ties. Like if you're having difficult relationships with people, you'll find out like who they were to you in a past life. And you're like, oh, that's why he triggers me so much. Or that's why I have such a problem with her, because this happened in a relationship in the past life, and we need to cut those cords. And you can do all that. There's so much that you can get from a past life regression. So that being said, if you would like to know more information, please do contact me. You can find me on Instagram. You can go onto my website. All the details are in the show notes. And then just send me a message and we can talk about how we can do that. And come over to the group and leave any questions you've got or anything else you'd like to know. We'll put the poll up to see where your guys' thoughts are on past lives. And if you would like to know any more information, like we said, let us know. I'd love to do another episode on past lives and just talk a bit deeper, rather than talking about actually what QHHT is, just talking more about it. But I'd like some direction. Yeah. Because otherwise I have it all up here, but I need it to be pulled out. Also, we're probably due to do another QHHT session. Yeah. So maybe next one we could talk about what happens there, and because it'll be fresh.
It will,
you can let people know about your experience, because it's just fascinating. You're just perfect for it. So no wonder we've been, again, it's just another thing as to why we've been brought together. The hypnotist and the perfect hypnotherapy subject. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed this episode, guys. I think this is our longest one yet. It's 111. Yay! So we're going to go. We will speak to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.